The thing is that, so when you talk about World War II, you're only allowed to have the official narrative on it. And here it is. We all know what it is, right? Who are you, Neville Chamberlain? You mean you don't want to go to war? You want to appease? That's the only lesson of history that you're allowed to learn, is that appeasement doesn't work. Presumably, we should have started the war earlier, I guess, is the story. But by the way, you can never learn the lesson of history that sometimes like preemptive wars don't work. Sometimes, like ruthless power doesn't work. Maybe sometimes appeasement would be better than that, It's like there's only one, and so that's the lesson. By the way, same thing with Putin. Everybody who, if you didn't support the war, I know you got called this. I watched you get called this. You were never Chamberlain for not wanting to back Ukraine immediately in the war, right? It's the only lesson in history. Now, you can't look at World War II and say, hey, maybe Danzig was the lesson. Maybe exactly. War guarantees were the lesson. And I'm not even saying they are, maybe not, but objectively speaking, if we want to be honest about World War II is the worst thing that ever happened in the history of the world.
Yes, by definition.
The worst thing that ever happened. More people killed. The Holocaust happened in the middle of it. Tens of millions of people died in European conflict, brutal conflict on all sides.
It destroyed the greatest continent.
Yes. Now, right, exactly. Now, okay. If you want, they say winners of wars write the history, and man, did the Nazis and Imperial Japan make it really easy. Because they were so evil. They were like caricatures of evil, and they really were. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, because Stalin's army wasn't like high-fiving everybody on the way in to Germany.
They raped every woman in Germany.
Right. I mean, it's like there's a lot of, but any sane person, if you look back at World War II, and you recognize the worst thing that ever happened, you would try to say, how could we have avoided this?
Exactly.
Like, what could we have done to not make this happen? The lesson should be like, oh my God, we imposed Versailles on the Germans and insisted on humiliating them internationally, and look at the backlash of this. And then, whatever, there's all this stuff. A lot of it comes down to entering World War I, and World War II was really an extension of that.
That's right.
But it's like the only lesson you're allowed to take away is this. But, I really liked the way you put it on Rogan, and it was just kind of a quick aside. But look, it's just so evil on its face that I know human beings are amazing at doing mental gymnastics to justify anything. I've been doing a lot of debates on the topic of Israel, and I've been watching this firsthand. It's like you could watch videos every day on Twitter of babies, like suffocating to death under rubble. And like someone will justify that. Someone will say, well, actually, we need to do this because whatever. All of Hamas must be destroyed. Why exactly? Like, why is it absolutely necessary? You're telling me Israel, the fortress of the world, can't just not drop the ball again? You know what I mean? Like, there's not some other answer other than this. And of course, America must fund it for reasons. But it's like, no, actually, that is just evil. And the onus is on you to exhaust every single other option before doing that.
But it's just interesting. It's like, I've done a lot of evil things in my life, and I really regret it. I think all of us are capable of evil. I've never committed genocide or anything, but I mean, I've been pointlessly cruel or deceptive, and I'm ashamed of it. So I'm not judging even Harry Truman for this, but it's like, why is that so offensive? And the other question I have, and maybe you've got insight into this, I don't know that much. I've read a lot about World War II. I'm not an expert, but like this worship of Churchill, I think is very odd. There's a lot about Churchill I think that was impressive. Erudite guy, fluid writer, had a kind of style that I like, used tobacco, which I love. I mean, there's a lot about Churchill, right?
That's in the pro comment.
It's cool, for sure. But here are the facts. Like, he sold his country on a war using the idea that we must defend the territorial integrity of Poland. There are other reasons, but that was the main reason, right? Poland. Okay, maybe that's a reason. Then 4 years later, he hands Poland to the Soviets.
After a bloodbath.
Yes. This country that we went to war on behalf of, I'm handing it to a worse master, a more totalitarian master, or at least as bad.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one who, or one of the only other two who rival.
Right,
him,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's right,
exactly. I don't know. I guess you could say if Hitler had won the war, could he have then killed more people than Stalin? I guess we'll never know. But yeah, still up there.
Okay, so that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem.
Jordan and Kobe.
Exactly.
You could debate who.
But clearly you don't care about Poland if you just handed it to Stalin.
Or clearly it didn't work. You know,
or something. Right. There's a massive disconnect. So that's the first fact. The second fact is he was rejected by his own voters right after the war. So they actually weren't so impressed by his leadership. And the third fact is that war destroyed Britain. Yeah. And that country is a depressing husk right now. I go there a lot. Unfortunately, I don't want to go there. It's the most depressing place I can imagine. It's totally defeated in some deep spiritual sense. And it's embarrassing to go there. So you destroy your country on behalf of Poland, and then you hand it to Stalin. Like, those are the bottom line facts about Churchill. There are a lot of other things to say about him, but those are the salient points. How could anybody think that's good?
Well, you know, in Pat Buchanan,
seriously, what is that?
100%. You know, Pat Buchanan's book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. The unnecessary war is in quotes, because that's not Pat Buchanan saying it. It's a Churchill quote. That Churchill, after the war, said it was the most avoidable, unnecessary war afterward. He took Britain from being the most powerful nation in the world to being totally defeated. They lost that war as much as anybody else did.
But look at it now.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
By the way, there's so many like ripple effects of this too, because they also, you know, the whole situation with Israel Palestine, this is also a result of the British Empire being defeated, right, and being driven out. So there's so much to this.
But why defend it? That's the way. Look, I'm not even judging Churchill. I may have made similar decisions. I've made so many bad decisions in my life. I'm not even judging. I'm just saying, 80 years later, when we can see clearly the aftermath, how could you possibly defend that?
Right.
And why would you want to?
And also, I just, you know, like, there's a reason. I mean, there's lots of reasons why America was so successful as a country. But part of the reason really was the brilliance of our founding fathers and the system that they created. I mean, that's a huge part of it. And there's like it's like when George Washington's farewell address, where he warns about entangling alliances.
Yes.
There was something really profound that they saw there. And this idea, and this is a real problem with, like, it's like, why would we even want Ukraine and NATO? Why do we want to make war guarantees for countries that we have neither the resources nor the political will to actually defend in the case of a war?
Nicely put.
Like, you know, look, I mean, like, first off, we're broke. We're $34 trillion in debt. We can't afford our own wars, let alone everybody else's. We're literally, it's so cartoonish. We're borrowing money to then go, you know, it's like if I was giving my sister money and my cousin's money and all of them, but I'm putting it on a credit card. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have the money, but I'm such a great guy. I'm helping my whole family. It's like, no, you're not in a position to do this.
But they're not even our family.
Right. And they're not even our family. I'm just helping some random guy.
Literally some junkie you met at Safeway.
Yes, that's a better analogy. That is a better analogy for Ukraine than my sister, to be honest. Yes. And so, like, it's just totally absurd. But then also at the same time, like, look, war's horrible. There's always some type of conflict going on in the world, and it's awful. But, like, the question is, like, would you be willing to send your kids to go fight and die to determine whether, you know, the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev or Moscow? Like, is that important enough to you? Because to me, it's a very easy answer, which is no, I would not be.
But would it be worth killing 1 million Ukrainians? Yeah.
Right, yes. But I'll put a flag in my bio and support my politicians printing money to send over to them, or I should say, printing money to then buy from weapons companies weapons to then send over to them, a mix of weapons and cash or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, so to me, it's
would you mind, though, not referring to them as weapons companies, but defense manufacturers?
I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. The Defense Department, the defense manufacturer, the intelligence community. That's my favorite one. The community. They're all just like gardening with each other and stuff, you know?